Forum's inauguration session. I'm honored, and Mongolia is very honored as well, to host the World Export Development Forum of the International Trade Center under the auspices of President of Mongolia, Khurelsukh. And the theme for this year's World Export Development Forum is Diversify with Green Trade, emphasizing the importance of new trade trend, organic, digital, and sustainable solutions to overcome multiple crises that we had encountered recently. Landlocked developing countries lack territorial access to the sea, which increases transit and transportation costs for goods to limit the ability to participate. Communication technology, development, and connectivity are crucial because they enable the communication interactions and transactions that allow LLDCs to engage more effectively with the world market. Improving cross-border trade and logistics is perceived as the most pressing factor for fostering e-commerce development. World Bank speaks about upcoming lost decade. All the economic forces that drove economic progress are in retreat. A global productivity is slowing down, investment growth is weakening, and global labor force is also growing sluggishly as the populations age. Especially landlocked developing countries face common challenges, and the lost decade we shall prevent altogether. To boost economic growth and prevent the lost decade, we, the LLDCs, must strengthen our cooperation, cohere our policy, and increase investment aligned with climate goals and in transportation and energy. Climate-smart agriculture and manufacturing and other sectors by making reforms in business environment are crucial. So we need to enhance soft connectivity as well as hard infrastructure connectivity. And for Mongolian case, the government of Mongolia is also trying to be the vocal voice of the landlocked developing countries. Without further ado, I would like to invite on the stage Her Excellency Ms. Batsitsig Batmukh, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. Abab Fatima, and the Secretary General and High Representative for least developing countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states, United Nations, Ms. Pamela Cook Hamilton, Executive Director of the International Trade Center, Honorable Ministers, Mr. Tapan Mishra, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Mongolia, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great honor to welcome you all to Mongolia, to the World Export Development Forum, as well as to the Landlocked Developing Countries Business Talk session of the forum. Unique challenges such as remoteness for international markets, long distances to the seaports, reliance on neighboring countries for transit and international trade, and high trade costs faced by landlocked developing countries were particularly acute in Mongolia during the pandemic years and the ongoing geopolitical tension. As elsewhere in the world, the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing geopolitical tension have created unprecedented challenges for the Mongolian economy, fueling inflation, hindering trade, logistics, and dramatically increasing public spending. In December 2021, the government of Mongolia adopted its new economic recovery plan aimed at accelerating post-pandemic economic recovery. The program is the first part of the country's long-term development program, Vision 2050, and aimed to address the key economic constraints such as border ports, energy, industrialization, urban and rural development, green development, and public services efficiency. As a result of these policies, the post-pandemic economic recovery has been strong in Mongolia. Mongolia's GDP growth in 2022 reached 4.8%, driven mainly by agriculture, services sector, and mining. To encourage inter-regional connectivity and facilitate international trade, the government introduced a port revitalization policy aimed at expanding Mongolia's dry ports, land ports, and airports, as well as improving its transport infrastructure. This policy includes expanding the railway and highway networks and increasing airport capacity. The construction of the 14 kilometers of the Tavantolo-Zumbaing Railway was completed in 2021, while the 276 kilometers of the Tavantolo-Gashun-Suqat heavy-duty rail line and 227 kilometers of the Zumbaing-Hang rail link were completed in 2022. Since air transport is a vital channel of transportation for LLDCs, Mongolia presented a working paper entitled Improving Air Connectivity of LLDCs at the 41st Assembly of ICAO held in 22 in Montreal, Canada. However, a hard infrastructure must be supported by a proper domestic as well as international legal environment, which together will actually facilitate trade. As part of Mongolia's long-term development policy, Vision 2050, aimed at increasing participation in regional trade and economic integration, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia pays special attention to the diversification of the economy through active participation in international and regional economic cooperation. The World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement became effective on February 22, 2017, marking a significant breakthrough for landlocked developing countries in terms of simplifying trade processes, reducing trade barriers, and improving the capacity of developing nations to integrate into the global trading network. Mongolia became a signatory to the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement in November 2016 and established the National Trade Facilitation Committee in August 2017, headed by the Foreign Minister. To facilitate foreign trade and establish an e-commerce environment, Mongolia became a party to the UNESCO's Framework Agreement on the Facilitation of Cross-Border Paperless Trade in Asia and the Pacific on April 28, 2022. Successful implementation of both the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement and the Paperless Trade Facilitation Agreement is expected to reduce Mongolia's trade costs by 30%. The domestic e-commerce market in Mongolia exists and has been accelerated by the COVID social isolation measures. The e-trade readiness assessment of Mongolia was conducted by UNCTAD, and the launch of e-trade report was held on June 8, 2023. This report is expected to contribute to the efforts of the government of Mongolia to build a robust, safe, and business-friendly ecosystem for e-commerce and digital economy development. Thus, we see digital transformation as an enabler of sustainable economic transformation and recovery. Mongolia concluded an economic partnership agreement with Japan in 2016 and acceded to the Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement in September 2020. During the official visit of Prime Minister Oh Young-erden to the Republic of Korea last February, the joint statement on commencing negotiations on the draft agreement on economic partnership between the two countries was signed. The establishment of a think tank for LLDCs was an initiative when the President of Mongolia addressed a meeting of LLDC heads of state in Havana in 2006. Later next year, a global event of landlocked developing countries and transit countries on trade and trade facilitation was held in Ulaanbaatar in 2007. During that meeting, the LLDC's representatives agreed to consider setting up an international think tank in Ulaanbaatar. In July 2009, the international think tank for LLDC was officially launched in Ulaanbaatar by Her Excellency Ban Ki-moon, United Nations Secretary General, and His Excellency Sukhpatri Batold, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate Mongolia's commitment to cooperate with international and regional organizations in addressing the challenges posed by transport and logistics, strengthening capacities in trade and infrastructure development. I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to the United Nations, our development partners and landlocked developing countries for their active participation and support for the activities of the International Think Tank for Landlocked Developing Countries. I'm confident that today's discussion at the inauguration of Landlocked Developing Country Business Talk session of the World Export Development Forum in Ulaanbaatar will be fruitful and important to our future cooperation. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you again for being strong political support for the organization of the World Export Development Forum, as well as presenting to us the regional trade connectivity, increasing of border crossing points, and the digitalization policy of government of Mongolia. Now, I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Rabab Fatima, Undersecretary General and High Representative for Least Developing Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries, and Small Island Developing States, United Nations. Thank you very much.
Her Excellency Ms. Batsetsek Batmong, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia, His Excellency Mr. Buntiong Duang Savan, Vice Minister of Industry and Commerce, Lao PDR, my dear sister and friend, Ms. Pamela Koch Hamilton, Executive Director of International Trade Center, my good friend, Mr. Topon Mishra, United Nations Resident Coordinator for Mongolia, Excellencies, distinguished friends and colleagues. I'm very pleased to join the World Export Development Forum 2023, and I thank the organizers for this initiative to hold a dedicated session on landlocked developing countries business talks, which is an extremely important event as we start our preparations for the third UN conference for the least landlocked developing countries next year. And I would like to take this opportunity to convey my sincere thanks to the government and the people of Mongolia for their warm hospitality and the excellent arrangements for hosting the forum. We deeply appreciate the leadership role of Mongolia to keep the LLDC's issues high on the UN agenda. I also thank the International Trade Center for organizing this timely forum, which is essentially one of the important events marking the start of the preparatory process of the third LLDC's conference next year. Thank you, Pamela, and your dedicated team. As you're aware, distinguished colleagues, the United Nations General Assembly decided to convene the LLDC's conference in 2024. The government of Rwanda has kindly offered to host the conference in Kigali, the first time that the LLDC's conference will be going to Africa. The conference will undertake a comprehensive review of the implementation of the Vienna Programme of Action and adopt a new framework for international support to address the special needs of the LLDCs. The Vienna Programme of Action was adopted in 2014 with an ambitious agenda for the LLDCs. It attached high priority to the role of the private sector in addressing the key challenges of the LLDCs. It is now at its last year of implementation, but progress has been mixed so far. We have just held the preparations for we had comprehensive discussions on its success and shortfalls in the region. The Latin American and the Asia-Europe review meetings will be held in the next 2 months. These are all in preparing for the third LLDC's conference. The implementation of the BPOA suffered from the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the situation is further aggravated by other overlapping global crises. LLDCs remain marginalized in global trade. Their share of global merchandise trade decreased from 1.2% in 2014 to less than 1%, 0.98% in 2021. And they continue to face excessive trade costs. Over the years, the LLDCs and their transit neighbors have made some progress on trade facilitation measures, such as establishment of one-stop border posts, coordinated border management, national single windows, and information portals. However, the lag behind in the implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. The LLDCs and their transit neighbors also made progress to expand and upgrade transit road and rail networks, strengthen corridors, establish dry ports, and develop seaport infrastructure. And some examples, good examples are the Djibouti-Addis Ababa Railway Corridor, the Kazungula Bridge, the Boten-Vientiane railway line are important strides in this regard. The trilateral cooperation for the development of the China-Mongolian Russian Federation Economic Corridor is also a remarkable example, as it provides additional opportunities for landlocked Mongolia to get enhanced access to seaports. But distinguished colleagues, you'll all agree that much more needs to be done to close the infrastructure gaps. On structural transformation as well, progress has been slow. And there is a similar trend with FDI flows to LLDCs, which declined to $18.5 billion in 2021 from $29 billion in 2014. And over and above that, the LLDCs are also suffering from persistent challenges in ensuring access to electricity and digital connectivity for all. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, we must redouble our efforts to turn things around. And the third LLDC's conference next year provides us with an opportunity to do so. The private sector can play an important role in shaping the new development framework for the LLDCs and in ensuring its implementation. Allow me to highlight a few specific points in this regard that I hope will be deliberated and considered when you have your discussions in the course of this today and the next 2 days. Firstly, to fully leverage on the trade potentials, the LLDCs need enhanced investment in resilient infrastructure. The private sector can play a crucial role in this regard, especially by supporting regional and global efforts to bridge the missing links, develop multimodal transport systems, and enhance digital connectivity for seamless movement of goods and services across borders. Second, LLDCs need support to fully implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, reduce trade costs, enhance market access, and support building trade capacities, e-commerce, and diversification of goods and services. Enhanced G2B and B2B collaboration can be instrumental in this regard. Third, LLDCs require enhanced access to technologies, affordable technologies, including frontier technologies and capacity building. The private sector holds the key to support them, whether it is for improving digital infrastructure, ensuring reliable internet connectivity, or enabling them to fully participate in the digital economy and e-commerce. Fourth, distinguished colleagues, the LLDCs need support to build their productive capacities, increase value addition in the manufacturing and agriculture sectors, harness STI, and further integrate into global and regional value chains. There must be more effective collaboration between global and local businesses to diversify LLDC's products and services and increase the resilience of LLDC businesses against shocks. The MSMEs and women-owned businesses need special attention. Finally, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, LLDCs need enhanced financing from all sources, including from domestic sources, bilateral and multilateral donors, IFIs, RDBs, and MDBs. The global financial outlook, however, seems extremely challenging. More than ever before, the private sector needs to play a proactive role in mobilizing more sources of affordable and sustainable financing for the LLDCs, including innovative and blended financing. The next program of action for the LLDCs will be an important opportunity to adopt a collaborative, multi-stakeholder approach for bridging the burgeoning resource gaps for the LLDCs. Honorable Minister, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, the LLDCs have tremendous potentials to be the new frontiers for business and investment, and I would encourage the private sector to seize this opportunity. This is not only about high returns on investment. This is also a great opportunity for them to make a difference in the lives and livelihoods of 562 million people in the 32 LLDCs. The outcome of today's meeting will be an important contribution to the third LLDC's conference to be held next year. And I wish to conclude by thanking once again ITC for today's events in preparations for the conference next year and for putting the LLDC agenda high on the World Economic Export Development Forum this year. We greatly value our partnership with ITC, and I look forward to their continued support and contribution to make the LLDC conference a success. And I wish to lastly thank you, Honorable Minister, for hosting us and for your strong leadership on the of the LLDC's group. I wish you all a very productive and successful meeting. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Madam Under Secretary General, for your leadership to address common challenges of the private sector and your notification on private sector role and engagement on overcoming our common difficulties. With that, I would like to call on His Excellency, Mr. Bondong Duansawa, Vice Minister of Industry and Commerce of Lao DPR, to deliver remarks. Your Excellency, thank you.
Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great pleasure and honor to be at the World Export Development Forum 2023 being held here in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to ICT for organizing this forum and the government of Mongolia for hospitality and excellent arrangements for this forum. So I would like to share with you a few points how we are coping with challenges of current economic difficulties and challenges associated with high logistic and trade costs for landlocked developing countries, LLDCs. For Laos, until 2019, the country has enjoyed real economic GDP growth of about 7% per year, enabling the country to halve the poverty and multiply GDP per capita for our people. Natural resource sectors, including mining and hydropowers, have been the main driver of economic growth in Laos. Of course, capitalization from natural resource sectors help the country to get higher economic growth and to get revenue for the government and to have infrastructure development in the country. But it has also been very vulnerable to external shock, particularly during the COVID-19. So everybody know that not only for Laos PDR, for other countries as well, because of the COVID-19 and also conflict in many parts of the world that disrupt supply chain and impact economies, whether they are large, small, whether they are developed economies, LDCs or LLDCs. So therefore, the Lao government put a lot of effort into mitigating any vulnerability from development of natural resource sectors. So we have put our efforts to develop private sectors, including MSMEs in the countries. So we also have a strategy to develop the country from a landlocked to a landlinked status. So in recognizing the need to reduce the transportation costs and trade costs, the country sees the trade facilitation as important element in our policy to help private sector. Efforts are being made to introduce automated information system for custom clearance, adoption of a Sekuda system, along with more modern risk management technique. So at the same time, we try to implement the WTO trade facilitation agreement to help the country. Second thing that we do is with the opening up of the Lao-China railway that connecting Vientiane and Kunming of China under the BRI initiative by China. Lao PDR has become a kind of link between southern part of China with the GMS region and ASEAN countries. So we have developed or plan to develop civilian dry ports, industrial zone and export processing zone. We hope that by focusing on developing this zone will help economies to develop in the future. The third thing that we try to do in recognizing and increasing role of private sector, including FDIs, large firms and MSMEs, the government focus on creating enabling business environment in the country. So we institutionalize public-private partnership process to have a forum for government institution and private sector to discuss on how to improve business environment in the country. At the same time, the government also developed SME development plan that also focus on how to assist or to help MSMEs to develop, including to help them access to finance and also to help them in digitalization to be able to do businesses in digitally, including to participate in e-commerce and other things. We also set up what we call MSME promotion fund, but very small fund, but also to help SMEs, including to access to more financial resources, and also for implementation of technical assistance activities. The next point that I would like to share with you is that with regard to the planned graduation of the Lao PDR from status of LDCs by 2026, the country has prepared what we call a national smooth transition strategy. The strategy includes 4 priority areas, including the first one is macroeconomic stability and financial sustainability. The second point here is that trade facilitation and investment. The third one is human capital development and structural and economic transformation. And the last point, the fourth point, is climate change and disaster management. Those are 4 elements that we include in what we call the national smooth transition strategy to graduate from LDC in the future. So from this forum, we expect to share our experiences and also to learn from other countries, particularly our LDC and LLDC colleagues. We would like to exchange more on how to develop proper dry port, because our country is a landlocked country. We have no sea, so we try to develop dry port. But in principle or in theory, dry port should support businesses to reduce the transportation and trade costs. But in our country, the situation is not the way that we would like to see. We would be happy to hear experiences of other countries, how they develop dry port in the country, and also to learn from other participants in other areas as well. So finally, I would like to wish the World Export Development Forum 2023 a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing Lao People's Democratic Republic's experience and visions, as well as trade facilitation and connectivity efforts. Now I'd like to invite on the floor our good friend Tapan Mishra, United Nations Resident Coordinator, Mongolia.
Thank you, Mr. Olsek Gunbolt, the Director General of the Department for Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mongolia. Your Excellency, Minister Patsetsek Batmunk, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mongolia. Your Excellency, Mr. Byontiang Duansava, the Vice Minister for Industry and Commerce of Lao PDR. Ms. Rabab Fatima, the Undersecretary General and High Representative for the Least Developing Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries, and Small Island Developing States in the United Nations, better known as OHRLLS. And Ms. Pamela Cook Hamilton, the Executive Director of the International Trade Center, ITC. Thank you for hosting this excellent forum. Excellencies, ambassadors, development partners, especially the focal points of the LLDCs who are here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to participate in this important meeting and to make some opening remarks on behalf of the United Nations country team in Mongolia. In my short intervention, I would like to share how the United Nations team here supports Mongolia and all Mongolians in achieving sustainable development by taking into consideration the landlocked nature of its country context and moving towards inclusive and sustainable development for all. In 2022, May 20th, the United Nations of Mongolia and the government of Mongolia co-signed the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, or the UNSDCF, for the next 5 years from 2023 to 27. The UNSDCF represents the joint strategic planning framework for collaboration between the United Nations and the government of Mongolia to accelerate collective actions for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which are critical milestone, especially for Mongolia, for achieving its Vision 2050. I would like to highlight that the UNSDCF is completely aligned with the national priorities and the sustainable development priorities set in Mongolia's long-term development policy, Vision 2050. In the UNSDCF, there are 3 strategic priorities and 4 outcomes. Trade is directly related to the strategic priority number 2, which is green, inclusive, and sustainable growth, and contributes to achieving outcome 2, which intends to make Mongolian economy more diversified, innovative, productive, inclusive, green, and geographically balanced by 2027. The United Nations in Mongolia implemented the UNSDCF from this year through its joint work plans, which was endorsed by the Joint Steering Committee in March 2023. And we are committed to make sure that we accelerate our actions for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, just like other countries present in today's meeting, Mongolia, as a landlocked country, faces a multitude of challenges in trade and export. It suffers from higher costs and a longer time in moving its goods across borders. Furthermore, its export is largely dependent on mineral resources and primarily as raw material. Yet, we see tremendous opportunities to tap into potential into trade and export, including leveraging the advancement in digitalization for economic diversification. The United Nations and Mongolia is committed to supporting the government of Mongolia in narrowing the trade development gaps and shaping up its trade ecosystem for sustainable development, benefiting all Mongolians and other countries around. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me share just a few specific examples on how the UN in Mongolia supports Mongolia in trade-led economic development to enhance its capacity in 4 dimensions of trade. First, trade facilitation. Second, trade integration. Third, trade connectivity. And fourth, trade promotion. For trade facilitation, we are supporting Mongolia in implementing a UN treaty called the Framework Agreement on Facilitation of Cross-Border Paperless Trade in Asia and the Pacific, or the CPTA, for improvement in digital trade facilitation. At the same time, we cooperated with the delivery of Mongolia's e-trade readiness assessment, which provides a comprehensive analysis of the e-commerce environment with concrete and action plan for improvement, and this was led by UNCTAD's leadership with full support from us. For trade integration, we have supported the government of Mongolia in trade negotiation skills that is better prepared in concluding the regional trade agreements with other partner countries, including the Republic of Korea. For trade connectivity, we are supporting the government of Mongolia in developing dry port for its better physical and digital linkage with the world. As a landlocked country, improving trade logistics is a priority for Mongolia, for which dry port is an important instrument, and Vice Minister talked about it. For trade promotion, we are also cooperating with the International Trade Center in developing a national export strategy. At the same time, as you may know, we collaborated with the Columbia University, the School for International Public Affairs, SIPA, as a partner with academia, and delivered a study on diversification of the economy and leveraging trade potential of Mongolia with a focus on the dairy production sector. For all these support, we are extremely thankful, and we do consider them as close partners with our UN agencies and stakeholders with proven professional expertise and experience in trade, such as the UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, and the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UNESCAP, and certainly the International Trade Center, and not to forget the most important, the OHRLS, as we are focusing today on landlocked developing countries. I would like to conclude my remarks by expressing my sincere gratitude to the organizers, ITC, and Ms. Pamela and your excellent team, which have been working very hard, the Ministry for Foreign Affairs for the excellent support, and all participants and wish you a very fruitful discussion today and meaningful outcomes. Sansak Niosi, Mashik Baitla.
Thank you, Mr. Tapan. I would like to reiterate the 4 points: trade facilitation, trade negotiation, trade connectivity, and trade promotion. And I'm very happy that in the afternoon we will be talking on the national focal points of the LLDCs around this theme. And the importance of cooperating with our international development partners is crucial for us. With that, I would like to invite Ms. Pamela Koch-Hamilton, Executive Director of International Trade Center, and would like to also express my appreciation personally for being the champion to organize this event today. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, Vice Minister of Laos, People's Democratic Republic, Undersecretary General, RC, Your Excellencies, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the World Export Development Forum for 2023. While tomorrow is actually the official opening of WEDF 2023, and today an event that is, as we international organizations like to call it, in the margins of WEDF, today's LLDC business meeting is really the star attraction. I come from a small island developing state, Jamaica. We have the opposite problem to LLDCs. We have oceans all around us. But while our challenges may differ, I know what it's like to have geography stacked against you, to have inherent limitations on your ability to reach scale due to commodity dependence and weak infrastructure, to have your routes to market held at the mercy of transit countries. That's why this is a great chance for us to hear directly from landlocked developing countries, their governments, and their private sector about what matters to them. To hear, for example, what are the trade challenges of LLDCs in this new digital and green age? How the traditional challenges facing LLDCs combined with what I call the 4 Cs of COVID, climate change, conflict, and cost of living, which have transformed global trade. How disruptions in geopolitics and supply chains have forced many LLDCs to rethink their routes to market. Simply put, what words like reglobalization mean when you do not have access to a seaport, and how the digital revolution is helping to mitigate some of the trade challenges of LLDCs, particularly in helping MSMEs access finance and bring their products to a wider market. That's why this consultation today, right here in the world's second largest landlocked country, strategically located between Europe and Asia, is so important. Mongolia hosts a vibrant small business sector. It is a shining example of an educated workforce of women and youth-led firms. Mongolia hosts the international think tank of LLDCs, which provides a center of excellence for LLDCs that generates research, policy recommendations, and ultimately concrete action. Mongolia is also a climate microcosm, so sustainability tools that succeed here can work elsewhere. This year's WEDF theme is diversifying through green and digital trade. The unique challenges facing landlocked developing countries lie at the heart of the discussions taking place today and over the course of the week. Today's meeting is a stepping stone to the upcoming LLDC conference in Kigali. I know that President Kagame is personally looking forward to hosting the conference next year, and I'm really happy to be supporting my good friend Rabab in helping to pull this off. I'm so thankful to my dear sister again from UNOHRLLS, who has traveled all this way to participate in today's consultation. USG, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I know it was quite a long haul. And congratulations on a successful LDC 5. We're really looking forward to being an active partner in both LLDC and the SIDS conference next year. Which brings me to today's business talk and the importance of public-private dialogue to exchange lessons learned and address barriers to trade, enhance connectivity, and promote a level playing field for the LLDC private sector. The wider aim for me personally is to chart a pathway out of commodity dependence. This, of course, is a common characteristic among many LLDCs and an issue that I'm personally very passionate about. Only by engaging the private sector and giving governments the right support can we reverse centuries of trading patterns that are simply not working for so many LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS. It's time to transform global trade one country at a time. We're excited to have international trade and development partners as well as businesses at this forum. That partnership approach is so important. It is only by sitting at the table that we can diversify through green and digital trade. It is the only way to design sustainable, implementable solutions to the trade challenges of LLDCs with people at the forefront. I'll be remiss if I don't take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the government of Mongolia for hosting this year's conference and this year's forum. My thanks to all of you for joining us in Mongolia. I wish all of you fruitful discussions and productive partnerships throughout the course of this day, and I will see you again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Before we conclude with our inaugural session, I would like to invite our speakers to have a photo session. Thank you very much. Short photo session.